Welcome to the Fearless Money Management Podcast, where we empower women to take control of their finances. I'm Claire Strong, and today we're chatting with financial expert Lisa Risser on how to stick to a budget. Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Good. How are you, Claire?
I am good. I'm just going to let our listeners into a bit of an inside joke. So just before we hit the record button, I was joking with Lisa that my husband will be thrilled that we are focusing on this episode today, which is how to stick to a budget. Something I am not good at, Lisa. Help me. So, first of all, why? I know it's probably spelling out the obvious, but why is it important that we stick to a budget even to begin with?
Well, there's a lot of reasons that we need to stick to a budget. One is we want to make sure that we know where all of our expenses are and be tracking that to a plan, because that way you can have some money, hopefully, left for savings and investments. And it's also very empowering for women. If you can stick to a budget, it's very empowering and you feel like you're more in control of your expenses if you have a budget and you know how to stick to it. And so it's empowering and it helps. We all get overwhelmed at times, and especially when we're not sticking to a budget and the expenses just seem like they just money keeps flying out the window and we don't feel like we have any control over it. It can affect our mental health as well and just feeling overwhelmed.
Oh, God, absolutely. And I think as well, and I guess this is an issue no matter what your income, but when you're on a low income or a fixed income, this is even more important, I guess, because it's so stressful. There's nothing worse, Lisa, than having an unexpected bill or, a direct debit or something that comes out of your account or something that crops up that you have to pay for. And then you just don't have the money to pay for it. Or if you do, that means that you literally, are living paycheck to paycheck and you can't feed your kids for the next week. So it can be really stressful. And I know that a lot of women like me struggle with this. And so I want to become much more empowered when it comes to budgeting, but I don't know where to start and I don't know how to stick to it. So there's one thing, setting a budget in place. I kind of guess we all know that we're not supposed to spend more than we make and the basics, okay? But how do we stick to it? Because that's easier said than done.
Well, one of the first ways to figure out, first you have to have a budget. So we've talked about that on our last podcast, but once you have a budget, in order to stick to it, first you need to have a budget that's realistic. You don't want to set something that is just, okay, I'm never going to go out to eat ever again. I'm never going to go to Starbucks again. You want something that is going to be realistic for you. And so first is to make sure that that budget is realistic and that it allows you to have maybe reduce your expenses in certain areas, but maybe not cut it out completely. You need to have ways that you can have those occasional coffee and go out to dinner and do some things that maybe you really enjoy doing. You need to be able to still do that, maybe just not as often as you were doing that before, and having opportunities to splurge once in a while, whether that be the Starbucks or whether it be something bigger that you want to splurge on. So that's the first piece of it, is have a budget that's realistic for you.
Okay, so I am liking the fact you're saying that we don't have to cut everything out, because that's the thing is, when you say budget to me, it just equals no fun. Budget is that sucks. Life's gonna suck. We're on a budget. I've always associated a budget with negative connotations. But I guess what you're saying is that it doesn't need to be negative. A budget does not need to equate to life is gonna suck. I can't do anything anymore. What's the point in living? What you're saying is quite the contrary. Sticking to a budget actually frees your money up, and it maybe allows you to actually do some fun stuff at the end of it too. So I like the sound of this. I'm listening.
Well, if you think about the Starbucks, for example, if you have a cup of coffee every day, you take it for granted. But let's say you did it 2 or 3 times a week. Now it's something like, oh, I really look forward to it because I don't do that every day. And it seems like an indulgent rather than just something that's just taken for granted. So a lot of it depends upon your mindset about it. And so the first piece is to be realistic. Another way that can help you to stick to a budget is if you have some visual aids. Some people are very visual. Some people really like the numbers, and some people are very visual.
Talk to us visual girls, because I'm definitely not a numbers gal. So yes, visual we like. What are you talking about? What do you mean by visual aids?
It can be something like if you're using an app, for example, there are some free apps out there to help you with budgeting. And if you're using an app, a lot of times they will have things color coded. And it can be something as simple as green, you're on track. Yellow, maybe you spent a little bit more than your budget shows that you should be spending. And then red, like you're kind of way over what your spending was. Something as simple as that can be very helpful for you. And maybe you're overspending in one area and you're underspending in another area, and overall you're okay. Some people like graphs. Some of these apps have some graphs that might be helpful for you, or charts that shows where your expenses are in various categories and if you're on track or you're not on track. So some people with those visual aids is very helpful, and more so than just a spreadsheet or just having just the numbers out there. So kind of look at what motivates you and what helps you. I mean, it's just like with our kids, right? When we give them a little star, it motivates them to get their chores done or whatever, clean their room or something. It's the same for us, even as adults. I mean, I want a gold star. And so even if it's something it's either a green color or I get a little gold star that, hey, I did, I'm on track right now. It just makes you feel good. And it just helps you to stay motivated and keep doing it.
God, I wish I was back in that stage with my kids where a gold star would suffice. Now it is literally okay, do this and I'll get you Starbucks, which is what we're trying to get out of here. Which is the whole point of this podcast. So anyhow, this is a learning progress. So do we have to do all of this on our own? Or can we maybe, I'm thinking, can we team up with people? I mean, do we have, like some people have gym buddies, should we ask a friend to do this with us? Or maybe it's our partner. I don't know. I'm just kind of trying to think of things that would help us maybe stay accountable, I guess.
Well, there's different ways to do that. And having a partner really helps. Like you said, that's something that's fairly common when we're trying to get back into shape, or we're going to the gym, or we're going to go for a walk or something. If we have an accountability partner or a friend or somebody that goes with us. Now, if you're married and you're in this with your partner and really tracking your finances and your expenses and your budget, that is really ideal if you do that, if you do it together. And there have been multiple studies that have found that couples who manage their finances together, they actually have closer relationships, and their relationships last much longer than if they are on different wavelengths in terms of their expenses. So if there's any way possible for you to do this with your partner, with your spouse, or if you're living together, with your significant other, and manage the finances together, because when you're managing a budget together, there's a lot of other priorities that come out of that. And those are things that are really good for partners to be on the same wavelength together. Because it could be, how often are we going to travel? How often are we going to go out? What are our priorities here in terms of spending our expenses? How much do we want? What's our percentage to save or invest? Or are we just going to just try to spend, we're not at that point and we just need to just manage our overall expenses. But if you can be in alignment as a couple together, that is so powerful with your significant other. And it does make you closer.
So on the flip side, yes, I can totally see that. By the way, I didn't know you were also a marriage therapist, but this is great. I'm taking notes because my husband, legitimately, he says this to me. He does our finances. It's not something that I have traditionally been very good at. I think also I have a lot of finance trauma from my, past marriage. I'll fully disclose on here. We had our home repossessed because my ex-husband was not good at tracking finances, and I was a stay-at-home mum at the time. And I wanted to do an episode based on this case scenario. When you're a stay-at-home mum and you don't have an income, you're very vulnerable. And I was in a very vulnerable stage in my life, financially at least, and we lost everything, and I had to start over. And so for me, I have financial trauma. I'm quite sure of it. And so when I came to this new marriage, my husband is very on it financially. He has, he loves the spreadsheets. He's a spreadsheet guy. He's the type of guy that will email me and send me a meeting request or whatever to have a chat with me. I mean, he's a lawyer. You know about lawyers because you were married to one too. So him and I have come at this from very different backgrounds. And so it's very important to him that I'm on the same page with him financially and that I'm a financial partner. And I'll be honest, it's been an area that I've really struggled to really kind of meet him where he's at. And so hearing you say this, I can absolutely attest to, if you're not on the same page financially and you're not working together, it can make or break a marriage, because it's slowly put a lot of strain on our marriage. And although I have felt that maybe I haven't had the power in the relationship because he's been the bigger breadwinner, that doesn't mean to say that I can't be an equal partner when it comes to budgeting and when it comes to, looking at our finances and having an equal thing in them. So this is great. And I think there are a lot of women who may be coming at this from a similar place to me. But what I want to ask you is, so I've also been a single mum. I've been that mum who has been on her own and hasn't had that financial partner. So, for mums listening to this who are like, well, that sounds great. I don't have a husband and I don't have a boyfriend or a, partner, whatever. Like, what about me? How do I do this on my own? So what would you say to a listener who may be in that boat?
There's a lot of us. I mean, I'm divorced and I'm single now. So I'm one of those women that are managing my finances on my own. And as I started talking to more and more women about their personal finances, there's a lot of us in that similarly. 90% of women in this country at some point will be on their own managing their personal finances. Either they don't get married, they get married later, they get divorced, or on average, they outlive their husbands by about 5 years. So we're going to be in this position. And when and a lot of women, they need help. And one of the things we want to do is empower women to reach out to each other to talk about this, because we don't talk a lot about our personal finances and bounce ideas off of each other. And we can do that. And women are much more open with each other on average with their girlfriends than men are with their friends. And so we can have, a lot of us have those types of relationships where we can say, look, I'm kind of struggling trying to manage my expenses, and I'm looking at this, or you know what, I found this opportunity to really reduce my expenses, and this is my goal. So if you have a close friend of yours, and maybe you can be accountability partners together and say, hey, I'm doing this well, or I'm struggling in this piece, I think it really helps. And think about it the same way, similarly, as we do going to the gym and getting back into shape, or wanting to walk every day, or whatever that might be. And we can go much further if we have a partner in that. And if you don't have, a significant other or husband, find a girlfriend, because we're all in the same boat trying to make improvements in our personal finances. And what better way to do that than to talk to a close friend of yours about it and share stories back and forth and help each other.
So what's interesting is, as women, there are certain taboo subjects that, you generally wouldn't want to speak about with anyone else. And actually, I have another podcast, The Mumversation Club. You should check it out, listeners, especially if you're a mum. And we discuss a lot of those taboo subjects that mums just don't feel able to chat about with other mums. It could be postpartum stuff. It could be, being intimate with your partner. It could be any of those things: grief, anxiety, depression. However, I hadn't thought about finance as being a taboo subject, but at least for me, having grown up in England particularly, That's one of the things, Lisa, you do not discuss with people. You don't discuss money or religion or politics with people that you don't know and that you don't know well. And so I can't think back to ever having had a financial conversation with any of my really close friends. And, maybe they know that I've had some money issues, or, we've spoken about it at a very high level, but we've never got into the details, and we've never ever thought about, oh, how can we support each other in that way? I guess, traditionally, certainly coming from the UK, it's been very much a case of, well, that's a private thing that's behind closed doors. You don't talk about money. And the only person that you would potentially talk to about money to would be your significant other, your husband, your wife, whoever that may be. And so this is great. This is great that we're saying to women, you don't have to have the guy, you don't have to have the spouse. If you're in that situation when you're on your own, and you and I have both been in that situation, it's fine. You can chat with this about a girlfriend, just like you talk to them about something to do with your relationship. Talk to them about this too. And maybe you can both empower each other together. So I love that idea, Lisa.
I think that it's something that's a great opportunity for us to do. And I think that as women, we share lots of things together, and we can have these conversations. I've been very surprised as I've been talking to women, just getting their thoughts about this fearless money management, and is this a worthwhile endeavor for us to really do? And they're all saying they all want to talk more about it. They all want help. They all want discussions. They don't want just a one-way conversation and just the education. They actually want to have that discussion. And I think working together and working with a girlfriend on this and sharing some of this more together, I think will get us so much further than we can on our own.
So on a practical level, like how often should we be checking in to make sure we're sticking to a budget? Should it be like a weekly thing that we do? Should we be doing it every month? Is it a daily thing? I mean, I know these apps make it a lot easier, but how often should we be like, basically checking ourselves and checking our progress?
I think it's easier to do on a weekly basis, a quick check-in with each other, because when you look at monthly, especially, if you're a mom, you got kids at home, you're busy, on a monthly basis, it's easy to lose track about what time you are in the month that you're going to do that check-in. But if it's something weekly, then you know that every Thursday you're going to do a quick check-in with each other. I think it's easier to keep track of that way and say, oh, yeah, hey, are you on track? Yes, are you on track? No, you know what? This expense came up, or I had to pay for the, kids, ballet class or whatever that might be, and I wasn't expecting that, or car broke down. But then you can have a little back and forth and just help support each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I also like as well that, for those of us who are in like traditional relationships, I guess, and we've got like a guy in the picture, I like the fact that it's we're kind of girl powering each other up here. It's not a case that we're solely reliant on the guy in our lives to do this with. So I love that. Here's a question. I wonder how much of this it really harks back to stereotypes, Lisa, of, what a man and what a woman's roles should traditionally look like. Certainly in the UK, going back generations, even I would say to a lesser extent with my own parents, but, it's been very much that, traditionally the man worked and the woman didn't work. And so therefore, budgeting and things surrounding finances has for a lot of people been, the man's domain. That said, on the flip side to that, I know people, a very close friend of mine, she doesn't earn all the money in the relationship. Her husband out-earns her significantly, yet she is in control of the finances. And so there's kind of a, I think you can be in two camps almost. There's the camp where the guy is very much in control of the finances and they're overseeing the whole budgeting. But then there are some women who are doing that too. So it's interesting. So where were you? So when you were married, what camp were you in, Lisa? Is that something that, were you actively involved? Because you're very, very, very educated and qualified when it comes to finances.
Well, I'm a CPA, and I was working as an executive, but my ex-husband wanted to control the finances, and I was so busy between the house and the kids and working, I let him do it. But what happened is I let him do it. He wanted to do it, and then he took total control and made decisions. Turns out, a lot of the decisions were not great financial decisions, and put us in a place where we would have been better if we had done finances a little bit differently. And we had different priorities as well. So, and it does put this rift between you if you have different priorities on your finances and one's controlling it, especially. It makes it much more difficult to have that close relationship that you want to have. And again, I ended up divorced. And when you're going through a divorce, or if you don't get divorced and you, on average, are probably going to outlive your husband by 5 years, those aren't the times for you to learn about your personal finances and figure it out. You really want to do that now. Understand it now. Understand how to do a budget. How do you stick to a budget and these basic things, and not wait till some major life event forces you to do it.
Yeah, that's great advice. And quite often life's so busy, especially for us women and as moms. And when something like a divorce hits us, we're in scramble mode because we may have been potentially mentally planning for it, but we haven't planned for it in a, necessarily practical sense. So that's great advice. One thing I want to ask you, what if we, have a few slip ups, which I'm kind of, foreseeing that I will do this along the budget accountability route. Say we've just had a bad week, or we just, we've slipped up. How do we, how should we view failures, if that's what they should even be called when it comes to sticking to a budget?
It's just like when you're trying to lose weight. If you say, okay, I'm going to lose 30 pounds in 6 months, it's not realistic. Let's say you have realistic goals, you're trying to lose weight, but you slip up one time. Well, you don't want to beat yourself up for it. And frankly, if you never have failures, you probably set a too easy goal. So you want a goal that is not really easy for you. So then you're like, I had a failure, which says I had a goal that wasn't really easy to meet. Not something that's unrealistic, but it's also not so easy that I never fail. So failure is actually not a bad thing. So you want to think about it in those terms. And because as women, we question ourselves all the time and we beat ourselves up over everything. I'm working and I feel bad because I'm not home with the kids. I'm home with the kids and I feel bad because I'm not working. I'm not paying enough attention to my husband. I don't have time to go to the gym. We beat ourselves up over everything. But this type of thing, we should just think about, okay, well, I set a realistic goal that wasn't easy and I failed. Well, that's okay. So I'm just going to keep working on it and keep trying to get where I need to go. And not beat yourself up over it. And the other piece is when you have those wins, even if it's a small win, celebrate the wins. Celebrate the little things that you do. So you have a week and you meet your budget, or you beat it, and maybe you give yourself some sort of a little treat of whatever that might be for you. It could be that Starbucks that day, or it could be something bigger if it was a bigger difference or something like that. When you celebrate those small wins, it helps to keep you motivated to keep going. And that's an important part of trying to stick to a budget, is for us to focus on the positive. We give positive reinforcements to our kids all the time. And I think as moms, we should think more when we're talking about ourselves. What would we tell our children? So if our children have a little failure, are we going to beat up the kid over that? No, we're going to tell them, hey, that's okay. You know what? Let's learn from it. Let's do the best. Let's do better on your class next time. We'll maybe study a little bit more. We need to think of, give ourselves the grace that we give our children. And I think it's something that all of us struggle with.
Yeah, totally. And that should be all of our mantras, because you're right. We'd be horrified if we were watching someone react to our child's failure with, oh, you're such a loser. You're worthless. You're so bad at this. That would be horrifying to us. And so, but we do that same voice to ourselves. That same voice tells us those things. And so I think you're right. We need to be kinder to each other. And something that my kids' elementary school used to teach them, and I love this, it's failure leads to success. And so I think that's a great one to remember. So you failed, that's fine. It's not failure, it's a learning opportunity. And as long as you see it as that, you can just move forward. So I love this. And I think it's so important, especially, for someone like me who isn't a CPA like you. I'm someone who is starting out on my own financial journey. I'm in my 40s. After having lots of ups and downs with finances. And for me, I know that I'm very much, I react well to positive reinforcement. I'm better than, if you say to me, oh, if you don't do this, this is going to happen to you. All that does is make me anxious. And then I'm kind of like a rabbit in the headlights. I can't do anything. I'm paralyzed. But if you say to me, if you do this, this is going to be a reward, positive reinforcements really work with me. So I love the idea of, just giving yourself a little pat on the back, whether that's that nice latte or a facial. Oh my God, a facial. That would be what I would treat myself to. But they're not that cheap. However, the point is the same, that I really love the fact that if you're doing something well, and you know what? It doesn't have to be huge. If you're making progress, your progress looks different to someone else's progress. So stay in your lane. Don't compare yourself to others. And yes, if you're able to make progress and take some steps forward, you should absolutely reward yourself, because you're heading in the right direction.
And I think it's also where the accountability partner helps. So if you have either your significant other, or if you have a girlfriend and you guys are keeping each other, accountable and so forth, then you can help provide the positive reinforcement for each other about, you're doing it, you got it, you're doing well. And then if there's a failure, like, we can tell each other and empower each other and support each other. That's okay. You'll get it, you'll get it next week, and you're doing well, and just keep on track and keep moving and just keep being motivated. And then maybe you two together can celebrate some of those small wins together too. And that could be a cup of coffee or a glass of wine or whatever that works for you.
I love that. And, we'd love to hear from you guys at home. How do you stick to a budget? What challenges have you faced? How do you reward yourself if you're doing well? So we'd love to hear from you, because all of our experiences are valid, and what works for you could work for someone else. So please let us know your thoughts. And that brings us to the end of another episode of Fearless Money Management. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave us a review. Your support helps us to reach even more amazing women on their journey to financial freedom. Bye for now.